All right. Good morning, afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for a Green Sports Alliance webinar. Apologies, we were working through some technical difficulties. If you do see some folks come on, we will take them back into attendees versus panelists, but work with us. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Katie. I am the manager of events and operations here at the Green Sports Alliance. For those of you who are new to the Green Sports Alliance, we are the largest entity that brings together professionals in the sports and sustainability industry. Feel free to email me. I'm going to put my email in the chat if you want some more information on the Green Sports Alliance. We would love to learn a little bit more about you. So I'm going to pause and put a question up on your screen. And you should see it now. It is launched. Oh, wrong question. So sorry. Here we go. Launch. Okay, so the question is, what industry do you work in? It's an open-ended question. It's just a chance for us to get to know who's in the room a little bit. You can also introduce yourself in the chat if you feel comfortable doing that. You have capabilities of talking to everyone. You can also put your questions in the chat as well. I'm going to put my email. Okay. I'm going to end the poll, and I believe the panelists can see. Oh, can you guys see this as well? Nonprofit, consulting, sustainable events, healthcare, and food service. Beautiful. Oh, I can share the results. Okay. All right. I'm going to do some quick updates for the Green Sports Alliance. To all of the corporate members in attendance today that are part of the Green Sports Alliance, you will have access to our new membership portal called Glue Up. You will have access today at the Green Sports Alliance. Our superpower is simply connecting folks in this industry, whether it's your stadium neighbor, it's your biggest rival in the league, or a sustainable solutions provider. The membership portal is a place to connect and learn. Be on the lookout from Matt today for all of the details on how to get started. Before I hand it off to our panelists, I want to remind you of Green Sports Day that's happening on October 6th. It happens every year on October 6th. We were officially declared for this day by President Obama. I'm going to show you this little video real quick. It doesn't have sound at first, but it will in a second.
And the Penns have been leaders in the Green Sports Alliance, making their facilities more energy and water efficient, lowering their carbon footprint as they travel. I want to thank Commissioner Bettman and the entire NHL for leading the way in environmentally sustainable sports, because we want to continue to have ice so that we can play hockey.
So this year we are arranging community impact events across the US. If you work for a nonprofit and you're looking to host an event in a major city, feel free to email me. I'd be happy to help you set up an event for local teams in your area. You will find the registration for these events on our website in the next couple of months. So if you're in LA, you just click LA and you can sign up and see all the details of that event. And now we're going to talk about the balanced burgers. I'm going to ask you another question so that we can kind of get to know what you're looking to learn in this webinar. I'm going to launch it right. Oh, it's not going to let me launch. Oh, can you guys see it?
Not yet.
Did you guys see the last one though?
We did, yeah.
Oh, dang it. All right, well, epic fail. I am going to pass it to Steph. If you guys do have any questions, please put them in the chat. We'll be sure to answer them live or get to them at the very end. Go ahead, Steph.
Thanks, Katie. And we're actually going to pass it to Tim,
Oh,
who's
Tim.
going to take over screen share.
Sure. 1 second. Let me share my screen. Okay, you can see it? Perfect. Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Dale. I am the Category Innovation Director at Food System Innovations, where I lead the Balanced Protein Consortium, which is a pre-competitive coalition of food manufacturers, researchers, and other nonprofits that are working together to help accelerate this category of balanced proteins, which includes this balanced burger as well. So that's me. I'll pass it over to Steph for an introduction.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Steph. I'm the Corporate Engagement Director for Greener by Default. Greener by Default is a small nonprofit that empowers institutions with evidence-based consulting and hands-on guidance to serve inclusive, sustainable, and delicious plant-forward menus. We do this work across a variety of segments, including sports venues, but not limited to them. We also work with colleges and universities, hospitals, cultural centers, workplace cafeterias, and a bunch of other travel facilities and hospitality events. And in partnership with the Balanced Protein Consortium, we put together this menuing guide to help ease the transition for food service providers. We hope this guide helps culinary teams dive a little deeper into how to make balanced burgers successful. And Tim will get into that a little later, but I first want to set the stage here for why we're talking about balanced burgers today. So, GBD's mission is to increase plant-based eating, but we also recognize that burgers are not going anywhere. They're popular, people find them delicious, and people are, of course, familiar with them. And since burgers aren't going anywhere, neither are their problems, and those problems are getting harder and harder to ignore. Retail beef is at an all-time high right now. There are nutritional concerns because about 90% of children and the majority of adults are not getting enough fiber in their diets. And for the climate, animal farming is responsible for anywhere from 14 to 16.5% of CO2 emissions globally. And so I want to dive in a little deeper here on specifically the beef price issue, because there's really massive volatility in beef prices right now. Beef prices are 68% higher than they were 5 years ago, and they're getting worse. Inflation is really high, and when you add labor shortages and expensive fuel costs, import taxes into all of this, beef prices are really skyrocketing. We also have a 75-year low in the cow herd size right now, and that's going to continue to be a problem for us for at least 2 more years through 2028. Rebuilding herds requires pulling female cows out of stock so they can reproduce, and that means the supply is actually going to even go down further in the next year. Not to mention, interest rates are really high right now, so farmers are having a hard time kickstarting this and scaling quickly to rebuild their herds. And then there's water. After 2 years of negotiations, the 7 western states who rely on the Colorado River for water access have not been able to come to an agreement about water rights and usage. And we have no idea what's going to happen from that stalemate, but it's not going to be good for beef. And for those that don't know, agriculture uses 75% of what we irrigate from the Colorado River. The great majority of that goes to livestock feed like alfalfa and hay. Droughts are also leaving our reservoirs only about 30% full, and beef has the highest water footprint of any food item. And finally, just to paint a really bleak, a bleak scene here for beef prices. In recent news, the border between Mexico and Texas is now being extremely regulated due to a screwworm infestation, which is preventing cheap supplies and beef from coming across from Mexico, and not to mention what will probably happen from a screwworm infestation in the cattle industry. So, taking all that into account and knowing that burgers are not going anywhere, we need a better solution. And so we're faced with this question that Tim phrased as really awesome here. How do we preserve what guests love about burgers or meat while addressing its impact on our budget and the environment? And to answer that question, we are led to this fairly new category called balanced proteins, and specifically today looking at balanced burgers. So, balanced burgers are basically a patty that just swaps out 30% of beef for ingredients that are made from plants or other complementary ingredients. And you can do this in-house yourself. I do it with burgers at home by mixing it with mushrooms. Or there are a growing number of products on the market that make this substitution extremely easy. You're going to hear from Patrick later from 50 Cut, who is one of these producers. And so, why else might people want to use a balanced burger? There are four main reasons that we like to highlight, and I'll go from left to right on this slide. So, our friends at Nectar did a blind taste test, and balanced burgers were found to often outperform conventional burgers due to there being a more umami flavor and the moisture makeup of a patty once you combine it with plant-based ingredients. Second is the cost. As we've mentioned, beef prices are pretty bad right now. Switching to a balanced burger can reduce your costs and improve your yield. And there are many companies now who are offering products that are at price parity or lower than a conventional beef burger. Health. They can be crafted to help meet nutritional standards by blending with nutritional ingredients. And then finally, climate, as I mentioned earlier, beef reduction is one of the most impactful ways that we can reduce emissions in food. And so we're seeing the adoption of balanced burgers really trending, especially there's been a lot of interest from food service management companies, and that includes some of you on the call, so thank you for being here. But really seeing this across the United States and Europe, across many different verticals and segments. We're also seeing beef reduction goals being introduced at large institutions. And what I think is interesting about this moment is that those beef reduction goals are not actually coming from sustainability folks. They're coming from procurement teams who are looking to save money. We're also seeing new balanced products on the market as this becomes a trend. I'm particularly excited. We have a new balanced hot dog that we're going to see soon. Not we're making it, but I'm so excited to see it come on the market soon. And then we have a lot of culinary teams that we see who are partnering with their current meat vendors or sponsors to create custom patties for their institution. And then there are three buckets of challenges that we hear regularly from culinary or ops teams that are interested in adding balanced burgers to their menus. The first is a lack of familiarity with the products. There are a lot more opportunities to sample these products these days, and I'm sure any of the vendors within the Balanced Protein Consortium would be happy to send people samples if they're interested. Second is distribution is picking up quite a bit with major broadliners starting to carry more products. This is an oversimplification, but within the next few months, basically there will be a balanced burger product in every national broadline distributor in every industry. And all that's to say, access is expanding quite rapidly. And then finally, the third thing we hear most from operators is, well, what do you call it? Or how do I put this on your menu? And for that, we worked in partnership with the Balanced Protein Consortium to develop this Balanced Burger menu guide. And I will pass it off to Tim to dive in deeper.
Perfect. Thank you, Steph. So yes, as Steph mentioned in the setup, we know that balanced burgers taste great. They answer some business needs, but we also know that perceptions with consumers still lag based on how we talk about these products. So we partnered with Greener by Default to create this menu guide. We used our real world experience as well as an online choice experiment, pulling nearly 3,000 respondents to unpack some of these best practices in a three-step guide. So over the next few slides, I will review those findings at a high level. So the main question that we get, as Steph mentioned, is how do I talk about it? To me, I think there are actually two questions in that statement. The first one is how do I communicate that there's something different about this burger? And then the second one is how do I make it sound appealing? To the first question, when we look at executions in the market, we see a spectrum of approaches. At one extreme, you have what we call explicit technical language. This is when operators or retailers describe these products in as literal terms as possible with absolutely like no marketing sauce on it at all. It's a very conservative approach that gives guests better understanding of the product, But when you introduce too much information, guests opt out of this decision that's typically a quick judgment call. The best example of this is a product that launched in retail that was actually called the Angus beef and pea protein isolate patty, which sounds delicious on the face of it. Uh, at the other end of the spectrum, you have operators that are launching these products without informing guests at all. That's the true silent transition. The belief here is that the product can speak for itself, that if you're confident that you're delivering a great guest experience, then why undercut yourself by introducing any sort of guest doubt? The Dutch Grand Prix is a good example here, where last year they served nearly 30,000 burgers that were a 50-50 blend, combining beef with seaweed. And they only communicated about the switch after the event concluded at a conference. So this approach definitely minimizes that guest friction, but it does raise the risk of losing guest trust if guests find out about the change and later feel misled. So when we were thinking about what rule we should establish for this ingredient story question, we left it somewhat open-ended. If you can envision that spectrum of approaches again, with the explicit technical language on the bottom and the true silent transition on top, there is certainly a floor that you should not go below. There are always ways to manage your language to make it sound more appealing. Even if you want to be extremely transparent, you can still massage it and add in different notes that avoid some of that technical language. But there is no ceiling. Just how silent you want to be about your burger composition is a strategic choice for you and your operation. And in the guide, we offered up some questions to help you think through those decisions. There is no one way to describe a burger ultimately. And there, like Steph mentioned, there have always been burgers that included added ingredients like aromatics, binders, or vegetables for moisture retention. So your ingredient is just a strategic choice. Your ingredient story, sorry, is a strategic choice and not necessarily a requirement. So going on to the second step, that brings us to the question of how do we make the burger sound appealing? The most important thing I can say here is that burgers are chosen because they are delicious, familiar, and satisfying. We see in our data that positive nutritional perceptions are actually negatively correlated with selection rate, meaning that if a guest believes that this burger is better for their health, they are actually less likely to choose it. This is an issue for the balanced burger category because when you describe these products to consumers, they naturally have higher positive nutritional perceptions for the burger, which means they may have lower selection rate because, again, they're looking for something that's indulgent. Therefore, the rule here is that we need to reinforce those main three burger drivers of taste, familiarity, and satisfaction through how we communicate about the product and where we position it on the menu. We should not try to create new purchase drivers such as health or sustainability without first solidly establishing that credibility with those original drivers. When it comes to actual naming recommendations, we listed a few of the top performing concepts over here in a table, and we have them broken out in the guide as well. This first concept of tasty titles means leaning into the flavor notes of the ingredients that you're adding. So, for instance, the umami beef patty or shiitake infused beef, things that are conveying flavor and being transparent based on how they are talking about the ingredient that they are adding. The next concept is signature or house, which is a quick universal solve that just lends credibility and familiarity to your burger right away. We recommend using menu callouts such as guest favorite to add more social proof and reinforcements of that taste and satisfaction expectation. And then finally, this last concept is nostalgia, which is similar to the signature or house concept, but here we are leaning into familiarity with burger build names that your guests will recognize and understand. So now that we know how to talk about these burgers, the final question is how should we incorporate them onto our menu? As you all know, menus are systems. When you introduce one new concept, that's going to affect the selection rate of everything on the menu. So in our study, we took a look at three different menu compositions. The first one being menus that had both conventional burgers and balanced burgers listed. The second one being it was a balanced burger as the default option with an option to swap to a conventional patty. And then the third, a menu where it was just the balanced burger alone and no option to switch. The first thing we noticed comparing these different menu compositions was that the selection rate for the burger category doesn't significantly change when you add more burgers. It just gets subdivided. With the balanced burger alone, we had about 60% of the respondents choosing the burger item. When we added a balanced burger and a conventional burger to the menu, there was 69% of the respondents choosing a burger, and the balanced burger actually received more a higher selection rate than the conventional burger. This one was named signature beef, and then the other one was the beef burger. The second thing that we saw was that when you introduce that conventional burger to the menu, you are also introducing doubt in some consumers where none previously existed. We evaluated the taste perceptions of each of these menu items with the consumers to sort of get a sense for why they were selecting certain items. And we saw that with one burger on the menu, the balanced burger alone, uh, about 84% of the respondents said that they expected this burger to taste excellent or good. When there were two burgers on the menu, with the balanced burger and the conventional burger, that number dropped to 58%. And similarly, when we look at the other end of the spectrum, when we're looking at poor or very poor expectations, it jumps from 1% to 15%, suggesting that this direct comparison made people stop, think, and get skeptical about what the balanced burger is or what that experience would be like. So that leads us to our final rule, where operational simplicity is usually the best path to go forward with. We recommend using one balanced patty or a balanced patty as a default. If you want to de-risk this rollout further, you can test out one station or in a controlled setting before introducing more broadly. And then also, we recommend speaking with your team and training them on some of these communication practices so that they can be effective frontline ambassadors. So to summarize all of our recommendations here, here's the TLDR. Treat your balanced burger like any other burger. Communicate just enough and don't draw any direct or indirect comparisons to conventional burgers. Call it your signature burger and reinforce the indulgence, the familiarity, and satisfaction in descriptions and menu callouts. And then make it your only patty or your default patty. So with that, I'll hand it over to Patrick to walk through some real life examples.
Thanks, Tim. Hi, everybody. My name is Patrick Doherty. I apologize, my camera is not working, but I represent 50 Cut by Joint Foods. What we do is we have a special roasted mushroom blend that seamlessly blends in with any type of ground meat. So what we focus on is elevating classic ground meat comfort foods. And, as Tim and Steph talked, people want tasty, good food. And what we hear time and time again is the reason when we go do these cuttings or people taste our product for the first time is wow, what great flavor that is. And a big part of that is because of how we process our mushroom. We roast it down so that it actually becomes almost like a natural sponge. So when the meat cooks and the juices normally start to come out, go on the grill or the flat top, the mushroom actually absorbs them and locks them in. And what that does is it really enhances the flavor and the moisture. And in large volume institutions, they obviously you have to cook ahead of time and hold product. And that's where probably the single biggest advantages with our burger or other products, but is that it holds those natural juices in. It can be held for an extended amount of time, and it still tastes great. And at the end of the day, that's what the guests want, right? And that's what the chefs care about. But you also get the additional benefits as well. So real world success stories. So we're not necessarily working with actively with stadiums now. We were featured last year at the All-Star game, but we have a lot of momentum with large universities, cultural attractions, hotels, hospitals, all that are serving high volume quantities of burgers that aren't going away. And it's really been proven that that the burger works at scale. They can a lot of these hospitals or campuses, they have to cook the burgers well ahead of time. They're holding them for a good hour or two. And at the end of the day, when we do these guest satisfactions or student satisfactions, the ratings are up because they enjoy it more. And why? Because it tastes good. So it's really, and one of the other big benefits of our products is you don't have to retrain the staff. That's one of the hardest things, especially when you have a high turnover team, is that training. With our burger, you just cook it like a regular burger, and you hold it, and it tastes good. It's sometimes the simplest things are the most effective. And then finally, wanted to talk about real world. The Woodland Zoo up in Seattle last year, they actually set the 50 cut burger as their default menu item. And if someone wanted to scroll all the way down, there was an option to choose a 100% beef burger, but over 90% of the people defaulted to the blended burger, and it reduced their complexity. They only had primarily just moving the one burger was still their number one seller, and they had happy guests. So it's it really comes down to the flavor. That's the key. Is if it tastes good, and the guests are going to enjoy it, and the price is right, and the sustainability is there, it's just a win-win-win for everybody. That's, and as Steph mentioned, we have a great new hot dog that we're going to be launching, and we're really excited about it too. Thank you, everybody.
And yeah, we'll just send anyone here to download the full Balanced Burger menu guide, or to connect further with us if you're interested in doing a study at one of your locations and learning more about how to put Balanced Burgers successfully on your menus. We'd be happy to work with anyone, consult with you, do a study, or do an actual pilot, and dive in deep with your culinary team. So I will also drop my email into the chat. And Katie, I guess kick it back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Steph. I will put all of their emails in the chat right now in case anyone wants to get a hold of them. If anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I have a couple of questions if you guys have some time. What other ingredients have you found to work well in the patties besides mushrooms?
Yeah, I can answer. So in the consortium, we see a variety of approaches. We see the mushrooms and mycelium, similar to what 50 Cut is doing. There are a couple companies doing that. There are also companies that are doing whole cut vegetables and upcycled vegetables that has that similar moisture retention, adding a little bit of sweetness and umami to the burger as well. Then we also see some more novel ingredients like mycelium and jackfruit that are also very blank canvases that help retain that delicious beef flavor. And then finally, we also see some more conventional plant-based meat products incorporated into it. So you'll have your soy or your pea protein isolates. Each of these ingredients have specific benefits to customers and to consumers. So I would encourage anyone to think about what you are trying to optimize for and make your selection based on that.
I think
Awesome.
Tim definitely covered it, but I'll add one that I really like highlighting, not as a scalable solution, but just as a open your mind and be creative around this. The Monterey Bay Aquarium SSA does a upcycled beet pulp from their juicing operation, and they use that in their burgers. And the beet pulp gives like a, meat blood kind of effect, and people are really happy with it. But
I love beets. That sounds wonderful to me. And for any of you who were in Cleveland at the summit, you had a chance to eat one of these balanced burgers. They were delicious. Honestly, I couldn't tell that there were like the flavor profile was very similar to a regular burger. So I know my colleague bought some and had them at a barbecue recently and within his family. So um 5 stars from the Green Sports Alliance. I'm putting myself in an operator's head right now. A lot of operators or concessionaires have transitioned or at least offer a full veggie patty. So whether it's black bean or whatever, what are your suggestions for if they already have a veggie patty? Like what do you think they should do from there?
yeah, mostly, we really think the balanced burger should take over a all beef patty slot. So there's really no reason not to just swap that out. And then there's a lot of benefit to continuing to include a plant-based option for people who don't eat meat, to be more inclusive. And then, of course, if you go 100% plant-based, it's a lot more cost savings sometimes and significant carbon savings for the environment. So I would include both in your menu if possible. And GBD does a lot of work with behavioral science strategies, and I'll just put in a quick plug. Don't call it a vegan or a vegetarian burger. Use the same naming mechanisms we're offering here of calling it something delicious, like a smoky black bean burger, or call it your signature, black bean burger. And avoid using words like vegan and vegetarian that really isolate people into the identity instead of what do we want to eat and what sounds delicious on a menu.
Yeah. Um, so to get a little bit more science-y, um, do any of you know like the full capacity of the effect of beef on our climate? And would you be willing to kind of go into that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I can share a little more. So animal agriculture is responsible for about 14 to 16.5% of all of our CO2 emissions in the entire world. So that's really, really dramatic. We did the calculations of swapping a beef burger at one stadium. We're looking at a basketball stadium who operates 220 times a year between shows and basketball games and things. If they were to swap out a balanced burger for half plant-based option or half plant-based protein, so a balanced burger that is half beef, they would save the equivalent of driving to the moon and back 3.5 times in a gas-powered vehicle in 1 year. So it's definitely not nothing. And beef has the highest impact of any of our food when it comes to carbon emissions and water. So if you can do even something, it is everything.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of kind of not rumors, but there's just a lot of information out there that it gets a little confusing as to why cows, like why do they produce so much carbon? So yeah, if any of you are interested in more of like the science behind it, we have a lot of material that we can send you. Um, but I think that's all the questions that I have. If anyone wants to come on screen, oh, we do have a question. So from a attendee, From an operational cost perspective, do you have data on how much cost savings can be achieved from offering a balanced burger on the menu? As mentioned, beef prices continue to rise. For example, the operational cost of a balanced burger is 20% cheaper than a traditional burger.
Patrick, do you want to take that one?
Sure, I can take that one. So with when we first came to market a few years ago, we were above parity. But with the way the beef prices have gone, we're now equal or below parity on the burger price itself. But then you also get the yield factor. So you can actually, because our burger shrinks less, about 15 to 20% less, because it holds all those natural juices, you can actually start with a smaller burger in the raw format to end up with the same finished. So if you're, again, it's hard to put a number on what percentage you'd be saving on the beef, because it's really about what you're buying. But it could be anywhere from, parity to 10, 20%. The more expensive, the beef, the bigger the savings. But if you're saving, say, 10%, and then you're getting another 15% on top of that for yield, you're probably at a good 20% savings.
Yeah, I always encourage to think about the cost story, encompassing both the raw ingredient prices, but then, as Patrick was also saying, the operational costs with the hold time and the yield improvements. So it does get a little hairy when you're doing the math, but we have seen some other examples of operator or colleges and universities saving about 60 cents per patty, to switch to one of these balanced burgers.
And that'll get cheaper as demand increases as well. So as these become
Absolutely.
more regular on the market. Yeah.
Yeah, and for all of the sports people in the room, if you work at a stadium or venue, reach out to your concessionaires. These folks on the call work with Levy. If you work with Airmark, Legends, OVG, whoever it is, we can help you have that conversation. It really just takes a question. If they don't know that you're interested in it, then they may not share the information. So let us know and we can connect the dots for you. All right. You will get an email that has the recording to this in the follow-up. You will also get the Balanced Burger Toolkit, which Steph already put in the chat, but so you have it in your inbox. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much to the panelists for sharing all this great information. I think we all have food on our mind at this point. So I hope everyone has a great rest of your Wednesday. Thanks again.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you.
You.